Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff podcast. My name is David.
My name is Zach.
Craig 5 standing by.
And we have Darth CJ, aka Carl, if you didn't hear him. So we just viewed the first two episodes of the Acolyte, and before we talk about anything, we want to give a big spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the first two episodes of the Acolyte, do not listen to this podcast. We're about to spoil everything and talk about our thoughts, our theories, what we noticed the second go round for me and Carl. So you're warned. This is going to be very spoilery. If you're watching us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, type in your comments, your questions. We've all seen it now, everyone that's listening and watching. Let's discuss. Maybe you saw something we didn't see. I know Carl's seen a lot, noticed a lot, has a lot of theories. So we're going to talk about all that here. So you've been warned. So here we go. So the big shocking moment at the very beginning was Master Indara getting killed by May. Did any one of us here kind of foresee that, feel that, Zach?
I did not foresee that at all, especially since some of that fight choreography was shown at the end of The Phantom Menace. If I had known at the time when I saw that after the Phantom Menace screening that she would soon die after that fight, and that being one of the first scenes, if not the first scene of the series, that blew my mind. I mean, hat tip to Disney and Lucasfilm for marketing her to be a huge character, and then kind of, I guess that the way they marketed her is what made me think that she would not die immediately like she did. I wouldn't say I didn't think she'd never die, but I didn't think she'd die right away. I'm not mad about it, but it definitely took me by surprise, and I kind of sat forward more in my seat and was like, okay, here we go. There's a lot more to unfold here.
Craig, what did you think about Master Indara's death?
I actually had heard that it might happen from before people saw it. I think it was like maybe Bespin Bulletin. I think I accidentally saw a spoiler that I think it was them that thought she might die because they didn't see any footage of her in the other trailers after that. So when I saw that, like, I like spoilers, but I don't like them. Like, I wouldn't have liked to know that. But so in the back of my mind, I thought, oh, maybe she is going to die, but only because I saw that. I wouldn't have expected it on my own. So I was pretty shocked. But I wasn't shocked because of the spoiler. But when I was watching, I was like, man, she really does die. In fact, after she died, I was like, oh, my gosh, are they going to kill Saul also in the second episode?
Yeah. There was a lot of talk on the internet of if it being a lot like a Drew Barrymore Scream situation, and I could totally see that because from all the marketing, the trailers, the TV spots, you only really see that one fight between Indara and May. So I thought in the back of my head going in, they could basically kill her in this first scene here. Darth CJ here.
Yeah, they actually told everybody that she was gonna die in the first episode, because if you look at the poster they released, it's her lightsaber with the blood smear. So the second she pulled out her lightsaber in the preview footage that they released, I'm like, okay, well, that's the person that's gonna die, because they already previewed all that. So they told everybody that she's the one that kicks the story off, her death. So it really wasn't an actual surprise per se, but they just didn't like flat out say that it's her that's doing it. But they told everybody in advance.
That's a good catch.
That's sweet. Yeah, I really like that.
So
yeah, see, I never heard anyone speak about that, but I did go in pretty clean to this, not knowing any spoilers whatsoever. So I don't know.
I didn't know that as a spoiler. I just knew that from the footage that they had shown and the poster they released. So I knew she was going to die. I didn't know that she was going to be the opening scene per se, but it makes sense. Now, one thing that I noticed on second viewing, and I don't know if you guys noticed that on first viewing, is the fact that Indara actually knows that she's fighting May and not Osha in that scene.
Yeah.
And
well, she did say you.
And then the thing on her forehead showed up, right?
Right. She has that scarification on that side of her forehead, which if you watch the episode closely later, when they show her as a kid, she already has that mark on her.
Yeah.
Osha doesn't have that mark.
I did know she didn't have the mark. Yeah.
So she, the second the hair falls to the side and that mark pops up, that's when she says it's you. So she's fully aware she's fighting May.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that might have some significance later, I would assume, because they're gonna have to explain what that mark's about, why one sister has that and the other one doesn't. Because you would assume if it was like a ceremonial family thing that they would both have it.
Yeah.
And that's not it, because if it's like the people on their planet do that as a ceremonial type thing, like tribes in Africa do the scarification patterns on the skin, they will both have something, but Osha has nothing and May has it, so there may be some significance there. They wouldn't.
I thought it was like similar to like a tattoo or something like that.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's like an African tribal scarification thing. Where they make small incisions in the skin, make a pattern with it, and then they color it in with white pigment. Now it's like a spiral with an infinity symbol in the middle. Sorry,
I couldn't really tell what it was other than like the circle or something like that.
Yeah, I got a pretty good picture of it. It's
yeah. So the character of Mother Anastasia has it right on her forehead. And we saw that early on in the marketing. Now, in the show, they called Osha Anastasia, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And Mother Anastasia is played by Jodie Turner-Smith. So, is that the mother of the twins?
I'm assuming.
That's the question. And, of course, we didn't get to see her in any of the episodes tonight, Mother Anastasia, or that coven, which was described by Leslie Headland as being benevolent, not really dark side, light side, but kind of like middle ground. And I think more leaning to the light side and their own like entity. But yeah, what did you think about the revelation? I think everyone kind of went in thinking that this is going to be a twin situation because of the poster. And we kind of found out about the name of Osha and we knew about May. What did you think about the twins, Zach?
Yeah, I thought it was cool. Something I noticed when they did, I guess, the scene when the ship crashes and Osha gets out and follows the younger version of her sister. And then eventually you see the younger version of May talking to the younger version of Osha. Did you guys notice that they were different young actresses, or did I totally not see that right?
It's a lighting thing.
Okay.
It's
I was going to say
it's the same actress, but they lit it out to where, at least the way it looked on my TV is May is darker than Osha.
Okay.
But that's a lighting thing. It's the same actress, according to the
fair enough.
So
I thought it was cool though that they were twins. I'm not sick of the twin concept in Star Wars, but I think it's a cool plot point for sure.
I didn't think I was going to like that, to be honest with you, but I did. I going into it, I had heard that they might be twins, and I was like, But then, no, the way it was portrayed on screen, I did enjoy it. So I thought it was a cool thing. Now, when she is following her, and they're like, I don't know, was that like a hallucination, something through the Force that May was doing through the Force?
She can't. I was actually texted that to David earlier. May doesn't know that Osha's alive. In episode 2, has no idea. She has no idea that she's alive. So
who was doing that?
It would have to be the Master. It's the only person that would make any sense. That he's essentially trying to manipulate both of them, and because he probably didn't know that Osha was alive as well. But once this whole story gets started, he figures out that she's alive too, and then starts manipulating her.
Is that kind of like how Snoke could bridge Kylo Ren and Rey?
I'm assuming it's kind of like the same basic concept.
Yeah. That's cool.
Because none of that happens before the story gets started. So
yeah.
because
That's cool.
at the beginning of the show, they're both unaware of each other apparently, and then later on, Osha becomes aware that May's alive through these visions, and because she's told that there's a possibility of that being the case. So, but yeah, May has no idea Osha's alive. That's why they have that conversation between her and Soul.
It's a bizarre. It's like, yeah, I want to see how that plays out. How they weren't able to save her. That Saul thought he saw her die, and yet somehow, you know what I mean? Like, if you saw that in real life, how could you not see like somebody died or didn't die? You know what I mean? Like, how did that happen?
I'm sure
right. I'm going to assume we're going to get that in a flashback sequence.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have to show us what actually happened that would make all this make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we'll get, of course, back Carrie Ann Moss back in the show. Then we'll see the 4 Jedi, Indara, Soul, Kalnaka, and what was the name of the other? I'm forgetting.
The one who was floating and meditating.
Kobin? Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
Now I'm going to assume that that the master is directly connected to that whole story as well. So, like, I'm gonna guess that whoever that turns out to be is actually the reason why those 4 ended up on that planet in the first place. But I guess.
So you think it was a premeditated thing for that fire to happen, and maybe he was the one that?
I think he was the one already manipulating the twins, or more precisely, May, into making that fire happen that then ends up killing everybody and yada yada yada.
If May actually did the fire,
they said.
Well, I mean, they flat out say that she did, so I'm assuming they saw her do it. I mean, you wouldn't say somebody started a fire if you didn't actually see her do it. So,
yeah,
it would stand to reason that that's the thing. But I mean, I'm guessing this is like a grand scheme kind of thing. Like whoever that ends up being was already working on something, whatever that happens to be, with these 2 twins for whatever reason. Probably because they're the daughters of the head of that coven. So that would be my. From the little information we have right now, that would be my guess. Is that fits together that way somehow.
So in our pre-show, I told Craig there was going to be something that happens at the very beginning that maybe was going to sit well with him. Did you pick up on anything?
The Neomoidians?
Even before them.
Ray Speeder? Did you notice that?
No.
Ray Speeder's in one of the shots.
Oh, wow.
Like when May first walks into the village, she talks to that little creature with the red eyes.
Yeah, then hands him the coins.
If you look through that gate, which by the way, that's also the same gate from the compound on
Jakku.
Yeah, on Jakku. But if you look straight through the gate, Ray Speeder's be on the right hand side.
Okay. Yeah, I'll bring up that image.
David, what were you talking about?
So Carl and I actually had this discussion last night after we were at the advanced screening. It's the fact that they very much could have just did the same thing that we love, just have the Star Wars logo pop out and do an actual crawl.
Yeah.
But they gave us this.
Yeah, kind of like how Ahsoka had 3 separate statements like that.
I thought they said they weren't going to do the crawl anymore because, like, even with Rogue One, they did that. Like, I thought they had said years ago there was going to be no more crawl.
Right, but then they had said they were going to bring the crawl back.
Yes.
So I was kind of hoping it would happen here, but no.
Yeah, unfortunately, it did not happen.
Because I kind of expected them not to be doing the crawl anymore. I was okay with it.
Yeah. I like the text, though, itself, especially the middle part. But in the dark corners of the galaxy, a powerful few learn to use the Force in secret. I thought that was really cool when I first read that.
Yeah, I thought so, too. First of all, I have to say, the production with the costumes and the aliens and creatures, fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the best stuff I've seen in any of the Disney stuff. The
Yeah.
creatures were awesome. They looked so cool, and there were a lot of them. I don't know. I really liked that. So I thought that looked really good.
I liked how the Jedi switched robes. Well, I guess specifically Soul and his Padawan was. It's not Jackie. It's how do you say her name?
Jackie.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Jackie.
it's with an E
Jackie
instead of an A.
Jackie. Okay. How they switched from like the more white toned robes to more brown toned robes when they went out on the mission. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I just take that as like, the same thing as your standard military. You have the ceremonial uniform and the combat BDUs.
Yeah.
So that's how I'd kind of take that. That
Yeah.
the brown robe are like, okay, this is if you when you're going out and you're not necessarily representing the Jedi Order in an official capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's in the StarWars.com data bank where they have mission robes when they go out with the more brown traditional, what we've seen in the OT and prequels, and then they have their ceremonial, which is the more golden white tunics.
Yeah, with the kind of where the cape kind of wraps around the front.
Yeah.
So here's the scene that Carl brought up there. You can see Rey Speeder.
Or at least it looks like her speeder
Yeah.
to me.
I can't really see it. It's so small on my phone.
It reminded me of Taco Donna a little bit from The Force Awakens.
Yeah, I can see that definitely.
Yeah, but like I said, that gate looks just like what you see on in Force Awakens as well.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
not identical, but I mean,
it's the same style architecture.
Yeah. The same style. So yeah, we've heard from Craig about costuming. What stood out to you, Zach, about these two episodes?
Man, I mean, after I finished, I turned to my wife and I'm like, Yord is such a square. he's a by the books Jedi. He kind of he was following the way he was following. Sorry, all these names are fuzzy because they're so new. Not May, but her twin. What was her name again? Osha. The way he was following Osha in the second episode, going through the temple, like, oh, I just got to keep an eye on her. I don't necessarily trust the situation, and he seemed kind of, I wouldn't say like the fun police because they weren't trying to do anything super, super crazy, but he kind of seemed to be the one to first bring up, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we should do it this way instead of that way. And he seemed to be the only one to kind of think like that out of the Jedi that we saw. So I kind of noticed that a little bit, and it was cool how Vanestra Rowe was talking to Soul about, hey, it might not be the best idea for you to go do this mission. And he's like, if she murdered the Jedi, then that's my failure. Let me deal with it. I really like that. I thought that was a cool line. Those are two of the things that definitely stuck out to me the most. And obviously the death of the Jedi at the beginning, I didn't see that coming. I haven't, like you, David, I didn't look into anything really plot related minus the trailers going into it. And that definitely shocked me. But Carl put that poster and lightsaber hilt together, and that was really cool. I'm actually really happy you brought that up. But yeah, that's what stood out to me.
There was one thing that kind of annoyed me. When they were convinced that Osha was the murderer, even though like I was on the ship, that would be fairly easy to prove.
Well, I was kind of on that too, because like, okay, so she's on the ship working there. Don't they have logs? Like,
Exactly.
If she actually left there would be a log of her getting into some sort of ship and leaving.
If a slight rewrite, which should have been that when everybody went out drinking for that night, that she had left the ship and maybe she just went to a market or something. But that, makes it a lot less like, wait, she's clearly on the ship. She's clearly like in law enforcement. I feel like they'd be like easily be like, yeah, she was on the ship. She couldn't have been her.
I thought they addressed that though. They said that it's not traditional for two mechanics to be on a Nemoidian ship, and it's usually astromech work that they were doing.
They did. But you would still think it's
right.
easy to prove. She was far away. At least they kind of insinuated
The
that.
Nemoidans were kind of hiding that fact, right?
Yeah, because it's semi-illegal.
Yeah.
It's against the law to have people go outside the ship. But I think what some of this is, though, I think it's just editing issues, because I found a couple of things in the editing that are just awkward in that first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have that whole line in there about everybody else going to Nar Shaddaa. So it could actually be that the original scripting wise that was the excuse for why they go with, okay, well, all the mechanics left for Nar Shaddaa, so she might have gone with them, and therefore she wasn't on the ship. It could have been like at least an assumption, but they never even talk about it, which makes it seem a little awkward, because that's really shoddy investigating. That never even gets brought up. But there's, like I said, it's probably an editing issue. The other thing that I thought was a weird edit at first, I thought it was just a straight mistake, but then when I thought about it, it's just an editing problem. When they're on the outside of the ship and the Jedi arrive, so when Yord arrives, there's that ship, and then when they show them leave, it's the prison ship. They never show the prison ship actually arriving. So it just makes it weird that you have one ship arriving and then a completely different one leaving.
Yeah. They just dump them on the prison ship and
right, but they never explain that there's a prison ship even present. Where did that even come from,
Right.
kind of thing. And that's another editing kind of thing.
Brian pointed out, our friend Brian pointed out that at one point when May leaves, it's nighttime, and then she comes back in the same spot, and it's like daytime or something like that.
There's a couple of things like that, yeah. Where clearly they shot two different versions, and one thing worked out better than the other. Yeah, I've since I was on second viewing, I had the luxury of being able to pause things and kind of take a closer look. And there's a couple of things in there where clearly there's different daytimes. There's also, the usual stuff like glasses on tables that disappear and reappear in different spots. But that's just making a TV show. You're not gonna spend the money to correct stuff like that. Not on a TV show. You might do that in a movie, but
what Brian said is May escaped at night and drove off, but then the next scene it's daytime in the same spot that she left from.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else catch that? Was he right about that?
He's right. So that's
up on that.
Yeah, that whole sequence, it changes from day to night a couple of times. So I don't know if that's supposed to be like, okay, there's actually time lapse in between. Maybe that's what it's supposed to indicate. That this is not like one 15-minute sequence, but like a couple of days have passed, kind of thing. So So. Again, could have been done maybe a little bit better to, since they put the planets in there, they might as well put in there like later that afternoon or something to that extent, or have some sort of time lapse indication.
Sure. Even the character said something like, "We've been waiting here for hours."
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah, so it's something like that to indicate that time has passed, because it would make sense on the overall thing that time would pass in between. Because otherwise, it's just weird that she goes and tries to kill Tobin in hand-to-hand combat, and it's nighttime in that scene. And then she goes to the shop immediately, but then it's daytime when she gets to the shop.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but then when she leaves again, it's night again, and so it's weird. But
I have to watch it again. When you're watching those things the first time, you're just trying to, understand who the characters are and what's going on and stuff.
And then also, like I was saying earlier, these are all things that, in a movie you might actually edit that, or go back in and digitally change some of those things, because you're going to shoot all these sequences as you can, and whatever since these are actual practical sets, whatever lighting is there is whatever lighting is there. So that may just be one of those things where I was like, hey, look, all the apothecary shots are more or less done during the daytime. And so that's why it's always daytime when those shots are there. But then when they're at the temple, they shot that at night. Mm-hmm. And so that's why you always have the temples always at night and the apothecaries always during the day. Could just be the shooting schedule. So one of the things with it, when you're using practical sets and you're trying not to spend a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So, but things like that really don't bother me much. One thing that I will say though, and this is something that I noticed on the Dolby Vision versus non-Dolby Vision, this show really heavily relies on what screen you watch it on.
Really?
It was like when David and I we went last night. They showed it to us in a Dolby theater, but not the black levels weren't adjusted perfectly in that theater. And there were a couple of the effect shots that when we watched there, and I told David afterwards too, some of the effect shots looked a little weird. Watching them in Dolby Vision here on my TV, which is properly adjusted, they were perfectly sharp. But then I went over to my Samsung TV, non-Dolby Vision, played the same scene, and it looked weird again. So apparently they over edited this one into Dolby Vision. So if you're not watching this on the right TV, it's going to look completely different, which might also explain why some people think that it made the comments that this looks a little soap opera-y. You know, there were a bunch of people that are like, oh, this looks cheap. It doesn't look cheap on my TV. Like all the black levels and all that stuff looks right. But again, when I go over to my Samsung, it looks much cheaper.
Interesting.
So that I think a lot of those complaints are just people that don't have great TVs, and that's unfortunate. Game of Thrones made that same mistake.
Yeah.
Remember how the final season of Game of Thrones, where everybody's like, you couldn't see anything, and I didn't have any of those issues.
Yeah, it was really bad for a lot of people.
Yeah, and when people start mentioning it, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. This looked fantastic at my house. Yeah, it was dark, but it was dark and clear. And but that's just a matter of what type of screen you're watching this on.
Yeah.
If you're watching this on an OLED with Dolby Vision that's properly adjusted, the black levels look great. But cheaper TVs have really, really bad black contrast ratios and black levels where the blacks kind of wash out a little bit, and then all of a sudden it just looks really cheap.
Well, so Carl's got to tell people what kind of TV to buy if they're going to enjoy the show.
Oh yeah, I can tell you what kind of TV to buy. Be prepared for the bill, but I'm a little spoiled. I will admit, because I'm watching this on an $8,000 TV. Most people probably won't.
That's a lot. Yeah, I mean that's a lot of money for a TV.
It's worth it though. If you consume a lot of content, it's worth it. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching movies every day, so this TV sees a lot of action. So I felt it was worth the money.
All right. So what did everybody else think of the show? I mean, I really enjoyed it. I have to say, I really enjoyed it. I think it was a little bit better than I expected it to be. I'd probably give those first 2 episodes an 8 out of 10. I understand the first 2 episodes are usually a bit slower. Still, I really enjoyed it. It felt like Star Wars.
Yeah. I like the fact that it feels like Star Wars. It looks like Star Wars, which is also great. But I really like that they spend time with the characters and kind of give you a feel for who these characters actually are. I still stand to what I told David after watching it yesterday, though. I thought Jackie is the weakest character as far as the character development goes right now, because it's like, okay, like in that whole episode, she really doesn't do anything.
Yeah, she's just kind of there.
Yeah, she's just kind of there following around, and she's almost like she's the comic relief, but she's not funny. So it's like I'm assuming they're gonna give her more to do at some point because
they
so
are.
far she
with the
didn't do
lightsaber.
anything with that character. She's just kind of bland and underdeveloped in these first two episodes.
I like how she brought the ship in when they tried to corner May, and she said, "In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you're under arrest."
Yeah.
I like that callback. I thought that was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But real quick on that note, guys, I gotta go. Have a great time chatting it up. Carl and Craig and Dave, cool chatting with you guys, and have fun, and we'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right. Take care,
See you guys.
Have a good night, Zach.
Thanks.
So I mean, overall, I don't know. Are people going to start complaining about this before they even really see it? Because it seems like that's what's already happening.
Yeah, they have already. I mean,
you got something to chance.
But I mean, it's just knowing what the kind of environment is and the time that we live in. It seems like all the negative posts and YouTube videos get more clicks than the positive. So I heard an actual comment today talking about how the Acolyte is actually not with their advertising, all the negative reviewers. So it's like, how are they going to continue if the Acolyte turns out to actually be a really good Star Wars show? They can't go back and be positive because then they'll lose half their audience. I mean, it wouldn't make sense for them to be positive all of a sudden.
Unless they just say we were wrong.
Well, yeah, but nobody admits that they were wrong. That's the thing. It's like you would think that would well, sorry, I spoke too soon. This is actually a really good show, but yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, anybody who's willing to release stuff to pass judgment on the show they haven't even seen yet, that's just idiotic in anyways. And unfortunately, it happens with everything. And you have your Disney haters, and then you have your specific Star Wars haters that just release a bunch of content that makes a bunch of assumptions, most of which are incorrect. Then you have the people coming in there with all this. Oh, hey, this is a woke show. It's not. The lead character in the show is a guy. In case you didn't notice, how everybody, because May's not the lead, Soul is the lead. At least in these first two episodes, they make that pretty clear that he's what moves the story forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't.
If you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, make sure to drop a comment if you have any thoughts or questions for us. If you want us to answer anything, Renan R on YouTube says, "Was nothing learned from the Nihil?" Now, Darth CJ here. He's very well versed on the High Republic. He's read just about everything. So, what does Renan R mean by this comment, Carl?
Well, that's a good question because I'm not entirely sure what he means. Can we elaborate on that one?
Yeah. So the Nihil, of course, was the main antagonist for the beginning of the High Republic era that they started off with, Light of the Jedi, that novel. And we get to meet them and their leader, I guess, their boss, Markion Ro. They haven't come to a conclusion with the Nihil in the High Republic, right? I mean, they're still kind of around.
Yeah. So I'm not entirely sure how that relates to the show.
Yeah, people were kind of thinking maybe they're going to make a reference to the Nihil, but it doesn't seem like they did. Watching it twice that we have now, Darth CJ and I. So
yeah, I mean, maybe they will, and to some degree, I doubt it though, because reading through some of the interviews that Hedlund gave in advance of this, she was pretty adamant about staying away from canon as much as possible and kind of creating original stuff.
Yeah, that to me was very, very interesting. At first, I didn't like that she actually said that there's no Yoda. We're only going to pull from Republic, pull from EU. she made that statement. But of course, she could maybe just be hiding the fact that we do get a Yoda, the puppet from The Last Jedi that they created. I mean, that would be a great surprise. I think people are kind of looking for that, you know. I mean, there's a lot of prequel characters that are alive at this time that a lot of prequel fans would love to see. But after watching these first 2 episodes, I can see into this series on how they avoid the Jedi Council and avoid my series going off right now. Avoid any characters like Leslie Headland actually did state. So could be true. But with Craig and Darth CJ here, they're big time collectors. What did you guys think of Pip? Is this something that you're looking forward to maybe purchasing, like a hot toy, or?
Well, I mean, hot toy probably not. I mean, they're gonna make some of these. I mean, it's kind of a weird combination of a droid and a tool at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's more like an AI operated tool, like a multi-tool, because she uses it for welding. It's also apparently a fire extinguisher, which, by the way, that was the one thing that it really did irk me. The fire in space that burns like a campfire, that was just weird. I'm like, why is this flickering? It should be just a straight jet. You know,
Star Wars, there's fire in space.
But they've done fire. They've done fire, and you can have fire in space, but it doesn't look like a campfire. It's literally just a jet of gas coming out that's ignited. If there's a, you know, so it would look completely different, which is weird. But okay,
so
fine.
that's another discrepancy there.
Yeah. Just like just like the sparks that come out in that scene are pulled towards the ship instead of just blasting out into space, which is what they should be doing. Like if you have an explosion in space, the particles that come out just get accelerated and continue moving in whatever direction they were going, not come up and then fall back down and bounce off the ship, which is what happens in this shot. But that's just nitpicking, and that's kind of dumb.
So what did you guys think of Vernestra Rowe? She is the lone High Republic character that they brought into these first 2 episodes. Craig, what did you think about this character in live action?
I liked her. It was interesting because it was like, I don't like when Star Wars gets too political. You know what I mean? Like
trade disputes and blockades.
You know what I mean? I prefer Star Wars to be a little bit more of a adventure or fairy tale. I don't really want to hear about, and it seemed like it was going there a little bit where it's like, oh, well, we have to worry about the image of this and how it's bad. And so it seemed like it was getting a little, but, I guess that's a little bit of foreshadowing of what, happens with the Jedi in the future. So I liked her character. There's not too much to her, but, I thought she was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the fact that they don't actually heavily use her because she's barely in this. I mean, it's total screen time, so maybe a minute and a half. Like there's not much there. I do like the fact that they used her in particular because it's kind of a nod back to Russian Doll, which she's in, the actress. So Headland got to carry one of her actresses over. It's kind of neat.
Well, I think it's a multiple actors from Russian Doll, right?
Well, there's a couple, but she's the only one that's like actually like straight up on screen where you're like, oh, okay.
Well, she's also, I don't think you know this, Carl, but she's also Leslie Headland's wife.
Oh, that one I didn't know. But
yeah, they're actually married.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was kind of shocked, actually, how much Vernestra Rowe was in this. I thought she was going to be more on the fringe, but I like the fact that they established that she's very, very old, because she mentioned the fact that she remembered Soul as a youngling.
Oh, yeah.
Are you hating on bald people? What are you trying to say? Just because she's bald, all of a sudden she's old?
I used to be bald too, but I got the hair plugs. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have hair plugs, but yeah, I like the fact that they used her in the way they did, and unlike Craig, I guess I do like the political tint on it. How she was telling Soul that they need to be discreet, that this new information about this dark side user and all the events that transpired could be used against the Jedi. And that's kind of what leans us to maybe not showing the Jedi outside of the main characters, as much. I thought that was a proper way to steer the story for what we have and what we have as a TV show for Star Wars.
It also made me wonder, by the way, just whether she's aware of of the events that kind of triggered all this, because this may be one of those. Remember the last time I sent you on one of these and what happened, and you kind of messed it up. It kind of felt like that was kind of what was being said without it being said. As she's like, look, we need to be really careful about this. We can't have, we can't have another one of these incidences that we need to cover up later. So I'm wondering if she's aware of the what is clearly a mess up in a previous mission. One would stand to reason she probably knows about that one. So that may be something that comes back around. I don't know, but I also kind of like the fact that they hinted at political background things going on in the background without actually leaning into it. They didn't go.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go ahead and go into the Senate chambers and have and all that stuff. That would have been way too much. But just mentioning, hey, look, we do have some images, some image to uphold. We can't just go doing whatever.
Yeah.
I thought that was appropriate. It didn't bother me. Lucas kind of overdid it in some parts of the prequels where you're just going like, okay, no, I get it. There is politics going on, but can we move on?
Don't go to Star Wars Episode 1 to learn about trade routes and viceroys.
Well, see, I would have actually enjoyed if they had actually gone in and done like a PowerPoint to explain trade routes and where how do they actually run and that sort of thing. But
very original trilogy-esque the way they dealt with the politics of it all. Even maybe a little less than the original trilogy, but of course this is just 2 episodes, and I think that was only really in 1 episode where they talked about it. But what did you think about those aliens on that prison ship in the cells, especially this guy right here?
I thought that was a cool character design, by the way.
Yeah, he's kind of weird. I like weird. I like Star Wars weird. I like Star Wars aliens looking weird, like the cantina. It made me think of Dengar, what they did to Dengar in Rise of Skywalker, where he looks ridiculous.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna be more on the side of Lobot, but okay, this looked like a more advanced Lobot setup, because this guy doesn't have has an eye replacement thing going on as well. But
did you see what happened to Dengar in Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah. And in Rogue One, they had people with no heads as well, called the decraniated, I believe.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting. That's kind of a rare sight, I think. For
one thing I will say about that prison ship, that whole bit about the parasite.
Yeah,
I thought that was a little weird that the Jedi would transport prisoners in that fashion. Because that's awfully cruel to attach a parasite that could put it, because they explain that it's extremely harmful to your psyche. I'm like, so you're going to essentially torture a prisoner on the way to prison? I just thought that was a little weird. That didn't really make any sense. But
yeah, but maybe he was already, maybe they already did that to him before he, maybe right. The or whatever did that to him, and the Jedi just put him in there, and for transport or something.
Well, yeah, but a simple sedative would have done done the same thing, and would be a lot less cruel than attaching a parasite to somebody's head that clearly is not pleasant, because the guy's writhing in pain on the ground until it's removed.
Well, no, they said that he liked it, like it was giving him basically a trip or something. They made it seem like it wasn't bad for him, like at least from what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I probably have to go through that dialogue again, but It seemed like an odd choice. It seemed more like torture or torture on the way to prison, that like something the Empire would do, or Jabba's henchmen would do. But the Jedi, I mean, especially since this is a robot ship, which they may, because there are no humans on that ship, so you would think that they would have some sort of technology solution to that, not some weird, hey, slap this thing on there. It might make him nuts, but I don't know. It just struck me as odd. I didn't particularly agree with that being appropriate for what this was supposed to be.
But do we know for sure the Jedi or whoever's in charge administered the parasite?
Well, either they administered it, and they do say those guys do say is they put that on dangerous prisoners.
Yeah.
But even if they didn't put it on him, they certainly didn't remove it, which clearly is easy to do because a simple zap gets that thing off. So,
yeah,
if that was already on him when you arrested the guy, okay,
it
cool.
is odd. I agree that the Jedi would do something like that, but if it's on some back crazy planet where, like, that's how, you know what I mean? Like, then
Yeah, but I guess some of that is also due to the fact that they didn't give any context for this prison ship. Remember how we were talking about the Jedi arrive in one, and then the prison ship comes outside. I mean, is this just something where they just have these prison transports just cruising around the galaxy and they just hail it like an Uber? I mean, it just seemed odd because there's no explanation where the ship even came from. They never showed arriving. They don't talk about it. They show them leaving together, so you naturally the assumption can be made that they're leaving together, but then they're not together, and then later Yord says, "Oh well, maybe I should have brought her in myself." It's like, yeah, maybe you should have. I mean, this seems like a pretty important person to bring in. The first person to have murdered a Jedi, and you just throw on some prison transport to they're just like haphazardly, like that. I don't know. It's just a little awkward.
Yeah, Anna on Facebook agrees that parasite thing was so weird. Yeah, it was a little off when you think about it, and Carl brings up a pretty good point here. So what did you think about that heavy droid? It looked a lot to me kind of like a Cylon from Battlestar Galactica.
It did. It also looks the visor section of that looks like the robots from the black hole. If you look at it, I don't know if that was done on purpose, because I mean the black hole is a Disney property that they're supposedly thinking about doing something with again.
Yeah.
So maybe that was just on purpose. This robot also reminds me a little bit of the robot from the Old Republic video game. The meat bag robot that constantly makes all those meat bag comments.
I don't remember.
You're not talking about the HK droid, are you?
Yeah. That guy.
Okay.
Kind of reminds me of that. Obviously, in the Old Republic video game, it's a lot blockier because of the limitations of the graphics at the time. But kind of reminds me a little bit of that, which would be appropriate for the time frame. So,
right.
So, I mean, overall, I think we all agree that we're pretty happy with the first 2 episodes, at least, right?
Yeah.
What would you guys give it on a scale of 1 to 10? Just over the first 2 together.
I agree. It's about an 8.
Yeah, 8.5. Yeah.
What about our listeners? Is there anybody awake?
Well, according to StreamYard, we have 25 people watching. So,
give a number, Craig, 1 to 10. Let's see what you guys think.
Yeah, what are you guys 1 to 10 rating? I think we're all kind of unanimously saying it's about an 8. What do you guys think? Did anyone not like the first 2 episodes? Is anyone giving it a 10? So Anna on Facebook says 8.5 is my vote. That's about my rating. I really
by the way, the fight choreography I give a straight 10, because that is really, really well done.
Yeah, you're right. It really was.
I mean, you totally buy it. The movement, you feel the like there's actual weight behind it, behind the impacts whenever they do make contact. It doesn't feel like a pull punch like in a lot of fighting scenes. This was very Hong Kong theater type choreography, and I really enjoyed that.
Come on, guys, tell us what you thought. Give us a number, 1 to 10.
Yeah, Leslie Headland referred to it as force fu,
which
combat without lightsabers.
Yeah, I really like that, and it's something new because we haven't seen anybody really. Yeah, you had that Ezra scene at the end of Ahsoka, but that was completely different too. He wasn't like actually like doing any type of martial art combat.
Yeah, it's fantastic, honestly, in so many ways. So, I mean, I hope the people that are bashing it already give it a chance before they, start trashing it. So many people are already making it seem awful, and they haven't even seen it.
Yeah, and it is definitely not awful.
No.
Leslie Headland wrote great scripts. So I don't see how anybody has any major issue with the show at this point. Now, I may change my mind by episode 6. I don't know.
Sure.
Because Obi-Wan started pretty well as well. The first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan were great, and then it kind of took a nosedive, like a really, really hard one too, in my opinion. Other people may have enjoyed that show a lot more than I did. I was, by the 3rd or 4th episode, I was already halfway checked out of that show. I did finish it, but.
What's your rating, Joshua? 1 to 10. He says he loved it. He's watching on YouTube, but I do hope we get some good saber fights later.
Oh, I think sure we will.
We've been promised really intricate saber fights. Apparently, some news story out there is going around that there is a fight in the show that rivals Qui-Gon, Maul, and Kenobi from the prequels. So
that
would be very cool to see. And also, I heard that Jackie Lan is a fantastic. She does performs a fantastic fight sequence at some point. So,
and by the way, the fact that May continuously reaches for for her opponent's lightsaber, I'm guessing that's part of her homework. How she's like doing these assassinations, kind of like a homework assignment, like kill one person, this way, one person without a weapon. I'm assuming one of those stipulations that she's supposed to kill one of them with their own weapon.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, and that reminded me of the Jedi who was levitating. So I guess something happened on that planet with the girls that he felt guilty over it. And
right, because he commits suicide. I mean, he straight up commits suicide, and he says that he's sorry about whatever happened. So. Yeah, that she doesn't actually kill him. She just puts the poison on the ground and tells him, "Hey, look, you can, here's one option, or we can fight." And he just goes, "Oh, okay, I'll just commit suicide."
Yeah, that was very interesting and odd as well.
So I think that's why he kind of had been in that meditative state for guilt.
Right, and he's been in that meditative state for 10 years. They do say that, so.
Well, that's a bit odd if you think about it, because like, how could a being survive without eating or?
Well, it's a Jedi, and all that kind of stuff. But that also explains why Osha knows that he's on that planet. Because we remember when the second they mentioned Tobin, they mentioned the planet. She's like, "Oh, Tobin's on that planet." The only way that she would know that if he had already been on that planet when she was still a Padawan, which she hadn't been in 6 years. So, time frame wise, that actually makes sense.
Yeah, Joshua says, but the episodes overall were amazing, 8.5 to 9 out of 10. And I agree that it really felt like Star Wars in a way, and a lot of recent projects haven't. I think we all agree with that.
It felt Star Wars-y.
Yeah.
It maybe not like episode 4, 5, 6, but it definitely felt like 1, 2, 3.
Right. I totally agree. It felt like what we expected to see of the Jedi during this time period. and how they work together. And it was, for me, it's just incredible to see Jedi working together like that. Anna on Facebook says, I hope we find out more about what happened on their planet. They both thought the other was dead from it. I'm sure we are. I mean, it's going to be a flashback, most likely. We'll get Kelnaka and Dara, Tobin, and Sol on that particular mission. And I agree with Carl. I totally think that dark side user with the red blade had something to do with it. That makes the most sense to me. And what did you think about his design, or that person's? We don't know if it's male, female, or what it is, but
well, we really haven't gotten to see him. I mean, you get to see more in the trailer / add-on footage than you do in the show thus far, because you only get to see him from afar up on the little on the rock. So, I mean, it's just a guy with a helmet and a cape. I mean, at least what they've shown in the show so far.
And then we get to hear a little bit of the voice too. Do you think it's like a voice changing type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to tell, because this could be the same thing as Darth Vader / Kylo Ren, where they have one voice with the helmet on, and there's something completely different.
Yep.
So yeah, the title of episode 1 we learned, it's called Lost Found, and then the title of the second episode was Revenge / Justice.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't get this in the theater, but they did it previously on, and they did a recap of the first episode, and then it leads right into maybe the scene that Brian was talking about, where it's actually dark, and then we get the what is it called, the droid that pops out of the wall at Jabba's palace?
Yeah,
but it's like a double-headed one.
Yeah, it had like 2 eyes instead of 1.
Yeah,
but it's the same language, which I thought was interesting.
Right. Well, Huttese.
But why does the doorman at the Jedi Temple speak Huttese?
I don't know. Maybe it's a manufacturing thing.
Yeah, I mean, it also doesn't matter, but
yeah,
it's just one of those things where it's like, why is it doing this? I don't understand.
And Joshua Hancock on YouTube says, love seeing the Nemoidians too, and also the shots of Coruscant and the temple were really super well done. The sets all felt open and not confined. The practical effects and aliens were great too. And that's, I think, what Carl felt after we got out of the theater, that it felt open, it felt alive. It didn't feel confined, like as if they were shooting maybe like in the volume. And I have nothing against the volume. I think it's fantastic. But for a show like this, for this many characters, I think it's proper to go on location and maybe build sets.
Yep.
Joshua says, like the bartender and his child, the puppetry was amazing. Now, I think Carl pointed out that the child was CGI, right?
Yeah, on second view, it's actually a mix. It's a puppet and CGI mix. It looks like to me. It looks like the eye animation and that stuff is CGI, but the actual arms stuff looks more like a puppet. So it's probably a combination of practical and CG, which is the cheapest way to do it, and also the most convincing at the end of the day.
Yeah, I like when the character, the creatures look weird, and stuff like that. And I thought the creature design was really good.
Yeah, I like. I also like the way that they weathered the sets. It's not all like super clean, but at the same time, it also doesn't look like super decayed. Like how like the Andor sets were a lot dirtier than these, but these also at the same time look like they're lived in. And it makes sense for Andor, because this is after the Empire comes in, things kind of fall apart for everybody.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be at a time of peace. So it makes sense that, yes, just like our streets are kind of dirty, but not like dilapidated dirty. So I like the overall look of the show. So I don't.
Did anybody not like the show? Are there any naysayers out there? Because you're going to see negative comments everywhere. So I want to see, is that, and anybody that's listening right now, did they not like it?
Anyone hate watching this right now?
Huh?
Anyone hate watching the podcast right now?
Yeah, they're like, oh, shut up.
So Carl made the comment yesterday that he thought that maybe the Jedi Temple resembled something from like Fallen Order or Lone Survivor, the video games. Did you pick up on that, Craig, or you're not really familiar with the video game?
The little one, the little Jedi temple they were at.
Yeah, what Tobin is like. If you look at some of the design work, it's kind of similar to the Jedi. You know how the Jedi temple that turns into your base of operations for you for a while. Like it looks
Yeah,
like the inside of that.
You know, I don't think I really saw enough of it to really say
Mhm.
either way, but I'd have to get a closer look at it. It seemed like you didn't get to see too much of it other than some
Yeah, like I said,
rumors.
that was just my initial impression. I haven't done a side by side comparison to see if this is actually 100% match or not or what, but it has the same look, general look and feel to it.
So I'm assuming that's May's starfighter right there, right? Her shuttle.
Yeah, well, they don't. Yeah, they never show her getting in and out of it, so there's no
Right.
telling. This could be just be random ship number 2, or it could be hers. But
could be a rando.
Thinking like a kid. Forget being an adult for a minute. You're a kid. Our kid's going to be excited about this show. Our kid's going to think that's cool. I want to be, like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, and you know what I mean? Are they going to get that feel? Because Disney needs to get kids excited about Star Wars. I'd say it's too early to say so far, right?
Yeah, it's hard to say from the first 2 episodes only. The fight stuff, obviously, that's going to get the kids going anytime. I think this is aimed more at young adult than kid. Like, I don't think your 6-year-old is really going to get any enjoyment out of this storyline.
Well, I have a 6-year-old, so I'll find out tomorrow.
There you go. You let us know what the outcome is of that. But yeah, I don't see a 6-year-old truly going like, "Oh, this is my favorite show ever." But
no, she'll watch it with me because she knows I love Star Wars, and but I don't think she's going to be able to sit there and follow the story, but she'll watch some of it and the action and stuff, and
right. And the action sequences are vibrant enough to where I would think a kid would like it. And
she'll try and get to know the characters' names and who's that and who's that and who's that,
Yeah.
But they need kids to get into Star Wars again.
Even though at the same time, I don't think kids necessarily ever left Star Wars. It's the adults that have been arguing and bickering. I don't think the kids have ever cared about any of this. Like,
I don't know, man. Look at the toy sales for like the sequel trilogy. They were terrible. No, they didn't hardly have any action figures for like episode 8 and episode 9.
Well, I think that's because the sales were not as anticipated. I think they overproduced in the toys as well.
Not for episode 8 and 9. That's what I'm saying is like with 7 there was a lot. But 8, there were hardly any. And Vintage Collection, there was like only one series for episode 9. Like, think about when we were kids. There were like 93 different figures. You know what I mean? For episode 7, 8, and 9, there weren't much. 7, there was a bunch. But the sales must have been so low. But 8, it was terrible.
Even though if you think about it, though, on the adult collector side, there was a lot of stuff.
Adult collectors?
Yeah, like your Hot Toys and Sideshow figures and that sort of stuff.
You'd have to watch me like this to not know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so they made a lot of figures for 8 and 9 on that front.
Yep.
So I think
I'm just saying, like, they need to make Star Wars so kids really like the characters enough to want to play with stormtroopers and little creature aliens like they did when we were growing up,
Yeah. At the same time, though, do kids even still do that?
Do what? Play with toys?
Like play with action figures, because all I ever see is kids running around with iPhones and iPads and hacking away at those, and they're not really playing with. Like you remember back in the day when your mom and dad took you to the grocery store and you had to take your favorite whatever action figure with you to run around the grocery store with?
Yeah.
You really don't do that.
Remember it. I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I gotta get my figures ready. Actually.
Yeah. But you know what I mean. So I think that's also another thing with the action figures.
But if you think about it, there should be Acolyte figures on the shelf right now.
Yeah, that is kind of surprising.
You know.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I also think that they're kind of testing the waters right now with some of this content. But
yeah, so Joseph Ricci on YouTube brings up a very, very solid question here. He says, I saw the episodes tonight. What is an acolyte?
A devout follower.
There you go. I can hear Craig opening his toys in the background.
Yeah, he's getting his toy ready for the grocery store tomorrow.
Sorry, I'm just getting my action figures ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, so but yeah, acolyte. You know, like the Christian church has acolytes. You know, like when you're you know, the
I found the droid, sir.
There you go. But yeah, so you know, when you go to church services, you have the priest, you have the deacon, and you have an acolyte. The acolyte is usually the 10 to 15-year-old that holds the cross. I mean, when the
an altar boy.
Yeah. The official term for an altar boy, for example, is acolyte.
So does that mean that May is the acolyte?
Well, remains to be seen, doesn't it?
That's the question.
See, because for all we know, the character with the helmet might actually be the acolyte.
Right.
And there might be actually something bigger controlling that. So we just don't know enough.
Yeah, so Joshua Hancock on YouTube says, I've heard it explained that an acolyte, at least in this context, is sort of the apprentice's apprentice, if you will. Like preparation for the apprentice killing his master to become the master. Yeah, that's what it seems to be.
Right.
That's a good explanation there, Joshua. And Martin Luce on YouTube says, live sets, man. It simply enhanced the entire show. We agree.
Agree completely.
Practical.
It seems to me, just in general, the combination of practical with CG is really, really the best way to do this stuff. I can appreciate the volume, and in certain scenarios, is clearly clearly the way to go, because certain things you just can't do. Like, for example, it looks fantastic when they're in the cockpits and they can do the whole Starfield in hyperspace stuff,
right?
In a real thing that actually reflects on the on everything. Right. It's great for that when you need to create that effect. But I think if you overuse it and there's no real sets, then it doesn't look right. It only works right under certain lighting conditions. Let's put it that way. So, like, for example, for Mandalorian, yes, you have to use that because he happens to be you're working with a character that has a reflective armor. You're not selling that if you shoot that on a lot of practical sets, that creates the whole mirror in a practical set problem, because all of a sudden you'll be able to see the boom mic and all those things as reflections that you then have to go digitally and remove later. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the thing. So the volume kind of fixes a lot of those types of problems. But again,
I loved what they did with this show so far, and everything felt real and lived in and practical. So I really appreciate everything they've done so far. Other than a few nitpicky things, I really don't have any complaints. I've really enjoyed the show so far, and I'm a little worried about episode 3 that everybody says is like, oh no, it's going to be so awful. So I hope it isn't, because I'm really enjoying it so far.
Yeah. So, I mean, and if you look at the critic reviews, the ones that actually got to see the first 4 episodes, they're still, they're still pretty positive on the whole, and it's holding an 85 on Rotten Tomatoes right now. So for it to hold an 85 with a lot of the critics they having seen 4 episodes, so half the show, that bodes well, but I'm still a little nervous for the back slope,
Yeah. So there's 8 episodes, and this is not going to have a second season, correct? Or have they not?
Well, we don't know. They haven't said one way or the other, actually, as far as I know.
Yeah, there's not a planned second season, but Leslie Headland said she could for sure make a second season, and this season is not supposed. The season is said to not end on any type of like classic cliffhanger type situation. So, we could still get stuff from that era, and in that era, there's a lot of characters that we want to see, such as a Plagueis, a Tenebris, characters like that, and the old Jedi Council still around. If everyone likes the show, they'll probably do more.
So that the one in the mask may I don't know. I mean, if they don't die, maybe it's going to be Darth Plagueis's master. See,
right, Darth Tenebris. Yeah, Tenebris. He's a Bith, and he has kind of like a bulbous head. And if you look at that helmet, it's a little bulbous. So I don't know. That's
I mean,
people have.
I mean, it's only 100 years before a Phantom Menace. I mean, that's not really that long. I mean, that means Palpatine's going to be born in like 50 years. Right?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, around that time, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Joseph on YouTube.
And Phantom Menace, he was what? In his 50s?
Yeah. Somewhere around there, yeah.
So
yeah, you just gotta wait 50 years for Palpatine to be born, and then a few years have to pass, and he betrays Plagueis. And at some point, Plagueis kills Tenebris. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and the thing with Palpatine, do we actually know truly what his age is?
I don't think so. I mean, they could throw another curveball at us and give us
because he learns from Plagueis how to extend his life. So theoretically, by the time we meet him, he could already be 100 years old. Theoretically, like I said, because they do cover the fact that he comes from a wealthy family, so maybe that's not really possible. But I don't know. I don't know that I'm aware that they've actually officially covered what he's been doing all this time up to episode 1.
Yeah.
Not that it really matters, to be quite honest, but
like when it comes to the books and stuff, they say it's canon, but then they do whatever they want.
Right. Yeah, that is one thing that I will say that really annoys me is the fact that, and Filoni's the biggest culprit of that. Like Filoni just writes together whatever he feels like, and then somehow they push that through. Like the version of Thrawn that's in Ahsoka doesn't match the version from Rebels, nor does it match the version from the books. I don't know. I don't know what that was supposed to be. It's like a completely different character. You forgot, like even Filoni's version of Thrawn that he had written previously in Rebels is a completely different person than this guy. This guy's just like a moron. Like literally, he just makes dumb decisions. And like that's like the opposite of what you've shown the entire time in Rebels, and all of a sudden, maybe he just turned stupid while he was on this planet, and maybe by the time we get Ahsoka season 2, Ahsoka is stupid too because that planet makes everybody dumb. Maybe we'll find that out.
Peridea, the dumb planet.
Yeah. So everybody that goes there for more than 5 weeks comes back completely idiotic. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that version of Thrawn was just awful.
I didn't think he was that bad, Carl. I mean,
I mean, compared to the canon and all the literature and all out there on Thrawn, I mean, if you're a big Thrawn fan, yeah, I can see you taking offense to it. But I mean, it's like one of those things.
There really wasn't anything that was like the master tactician, for example, that they made, that they clearly make him out to be in everything else, even in Filoni's own writing. he definitely wasn't at that time because he was like, okay, we'll just do this. Watch
Well, he
me
didn't
fly
have a
off.
lot of options either. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but it's just like I don't see that Thrawn character that they have been presenting up to that point just going to some cult and going like, I'm totally on board with you guys. This is awesome. No, that just didn't jive. But yeah, whatever. It's done. It's over. If you. I will most likely not be returning to that show, even if they make a season 2. I mean, that's a lie. I'll watch it. But I'm an idiot on that front. As long as the Star Wars logo is on it, I'll watch it. But yeah, it's just. By the way, on that comment from Joseph there, I don't think that they're copying the Luke and Leia thing at all. I mean, yes, they're twins, but
right.
they're not
paternal. They're identical this time, and
yeah, but they're also clearly not anywhere in the same power level as Luke and Leia.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah. These are, and like I said, I'm not necessarily even convinced that they're necessarily the main. Like May in this case is like anywhere close to being the main bad guy, or that she's actually the acolyte per se.
Yeah.
That, I mean, we'll see. She might be, but
yeah,
we'll figure that out. Probably won't figure any of that out until episode 5 or 6 because, Perry Nemiroff's review, she was even saying that by episode 4 you really don't know what is going on there. So
yeah,
they're doing more exposition all the way through episode 4.
Yeah, so Joseph on YouTube has a series of questions here. Yoda's how old? So Palpatine could be very old also. We don't think Palpatine is born. Like Craig said, he's about 50 years away from being born. But Yoda would be about 750-ish around this time frame during that.
Yeah, right around.
Yeah.
He was
Joseph
robust.
also.
The thing that's interesting about that is that Yoda himself changes his age a few times in the original trilogy. Because he says by the time you're 900 years old, you reach, it looked as good you will not. But then later he says 800. So I don't know if he now doesn't know his own age anymore, or
Listen, sometimes I forget my age, and I'm not even 50 yet.
Well, if I was your age, I wouldn't want to remember that either.
So Joseph also asked, "Is it OG canon or new canon?" The older
Carl, you're not older than me.
I might be. You don't know.
Oh, I mean, just by looking at you, I thought you were in your early 70s.
170. Come on, give me some credit here.
Dark side or light side?
But
so yeah, I think Joseph, what he's asking here is that OG canon or new canon. The way that it's set up now under Disney, Lucasfilm, everything in live action will supersede anything that is written that is claimed to be canon. So the books, the comics are canon until live action changes the canon. So everything you see in the Acolyte is supposed to be mainline Star Wars canon. The Old Republic will be an era in the new canon, but it's just, are we going to take Old Republic novels and comics and implement them into the Star Wars mainline canon? That's the big question.
I mean, the Old Republic as it exists right now, so in the video games, in the couple of novels that they wrote in Old Republic, that is not canon right now. So
right, exactly, because it's kind of like EU type.
Yeah,
stuff
it's all
put
EU.
in that Legends pool. Joseph also asked, going back to the twins, the power of two. I think Joseph means the rule of two. I think the rule of two has been there since Darth Bane established it.
Yeah.
So that's been a constant. But of course, I mean, you throw in like an acolyte next to that's being recruited by an apprentice that has a master. You kind of skirt around the whole rule of two thing there. So that's a possibility, and that's kind of what we talked about during the podcast. And on Facebook says Filoni is chief creative director now. So do you think he had anything to do with the story for this show?
No,
he was. Well, I mean,
yes and no
in place, but I think this is Leslie Headland's project. This is her baby. This is her pitch. So
I don't think Dave was chief at the time when they started developing it.
right, and the when they were developing it, it was actually last decade when they were talking about this show, and then
they've been talking about this one. When did they announce this?
They announced it in 2020 in the investor call, but Leslie Headland made the pitch, I think, it last decade at Kathleen Kennedy, and they just never announced it. And I guess Leslie Headland wasn't a big enough name for it to leak out. And
she hadn't won her Emmy yet and all that stuff. So there's a lot of things that have happened since then. And Russian Doll is still actively being produced because that ended in 22, I think.
I don't even know what that show is. Is it good?
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, apparently, it's really everyone that's seen it says it's good. It's on Netflix, I believe.
All right,
I think it is a Netflix show. Joseph also says on YouTube, I'm just thinking perhaps the show should be called The Rise of the Sith, not The Acolyte. Well,
we don't know if the bad guys in this are Sith though.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to be Sith because all of a sudden in like Phantom Menace, they're like the Sith have been extinct for a millennium. You know what I mean? So they think that, you know what I mean? So I don't think they're going to be Sith. I think a little too far out.
Right. Well, also, if you look at the opening, the opening semi-crawl, they're talking about people learning how to use the Force on their own, not following any. There's no mention of, in the outer rims, the Sith are coming back or any of that. So now they do have red lightsabers, but that doesn't necessarily make you Sith. And this could also be artifact type stuff. Again, we don't know enough about these characters yet to make any real judgment because this could be Darth Revan's lightsaber for all we know. Because all those lightsabers from Bane, Revan, is so on and so forth. They're still technically around. Nihilists, yada yada yada. All those Sith from ages past, they're dead, so their weapons are still around. So this could just be kind of like in novels those cultists that collect the Vader paraphernalia and then end up with Vader's lightsaber.
Weren't they called the Acolytes of the Beyond?
Yes.
Yeah. So right, Martin on YouTube.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I just ordered some food and it just got here, so I'm gonna go eat because I haven't eaten.
All right, awesome.
But I just want to close out by saying I really enjoyed these first 2 episodes. I hope a lot of fans do and give this show a chance before they start trashing it,
Yeah, just so everyone knows, Craig is on the East Coast, so thank you so much for joining us.
Yep.
And you promise you're going to join us for every pre and post show, right?
I will be here.
All right, awesome, man. It's almost midnight where you're at, so enjoy your late dinner, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
May the Force be with you.
Always. And with you. So yeah, I was reading Martin's YouTube comment here. It says, I can see connections to the sequel trilogy with the Force Dyad and connections to Clone Wars during the ledge scene with Osha at the edge like Ahsoka and Soul, like Anakin there to stop her. I saw a fugitive connection, Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford. I think everyone kind of has brought that up a little bit. But the whole twin connection, I mean, it feels like there's usually a connection between twins anyways. It doesn't have to be a dyad per se, but I did think of that. I did think of the dyad, the connection between 2 Force users, even though Osha seems to not be able to use the Force anymore, and Carl pointed that out too. That was interesting.
Yeah, but also I think as fans we might be putting a little bit too much on this. I think this is literally just a plot device in this case, more so than anything else. Because neither one of these 2 seems to be like exceptional at using the Force in any way. Like the way they talk about Osha during her Jedi training, she even says, I was never a really good student and all that stuff. And she, decided to leave the Jedi Order on her own behalf. Yeah. And so on and so forth. So I think both of these are just kind of mediocre. Now, one's a dark side user and the other one's a light side user. So as we all know, the dark side is easier to use. So that's why she may seem a little bit more powerful, but I don't think there's anything special about these 2 other than the Force sensitive twins. So
Yeah, I agree. Martin on YouTube says, so I do see Filoni on this in response to his last comment. He was there. He was kind of an overseer, I think, on the Acolyte.
Yeah, he's an advisory role. So
yeah,
and they have that interview with Filoni and Headland.
Yeah, where they
where they kind of talk about the fact that she would go to him and ask him questions. But but as far as the actual storyline goes, like the plot and so on and so forth, I don't think Filoni really had anything to do with it.
Right. And Richard Taylor on YouTube says Palpatine is 88 years old in Return of the Jedi. And he's replying to Joseph there on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he still wouldn't be around during the Acolyte time frame.
But, yeah, no, I mean, there's really no way that he'd be alive during the Acolyte. I mean, theoretically, yes, but with the little bit of background story that you have on Palpatine, with where he comes from, they seem to make it pretty obvious that he, his parents were well known, so therefore he couldn't be older than his parents, unless you want to go into like weird Highlander type stuff that he made up his parents and he's really ages old, which is possible. Even within canon, you could pull that off and just be really lame. And I don't think they should go there. Because not only does he pop up in the sequels, he also pops up in the 100 Years Before show. Hi, I'm Palpatine. I mean, I'm in the High Republic now.
That's a whole lot of Palpatine that I think people are okay if we don't see Ian McDiarmid in the Acolyte.
Well, seeing him, I'd be fine with, but not as Palpatine. It'd be fine.
Right.
He did like an actor cameo in the background, but.
Yeah, Joseph brings up on YouTube how many kids are about to have those baby phone toys, but the ones that are Pip. I think it would be a popular toy. I think that would be possibly kid-centric, but I know they do have Pip phone bank chargers that they gave to some of the podcasters and influencers they invited to Lucasfilm at the Burbank offices. So they do exist. Hopefully we see them out there. I'd buy one. They look pretty cool. You can just magnetize them to the back of your phone. They charge your phone. That would be great for Japan. So
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if those pop up at Disney, for example, like in the park.
So the very last scene of Revenge/Justice is Kel Naka, or Kel Neka. How do you say his name? I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
Yeah,
but, he is
Kel Naka, I think it would be the target because it's. Hold on, Kel Naka, yeah. Because if it's Chewbacca, then it should be Kel Naka.
Okay, that makes sense
logically. So, anyways,
so this third episode, I assume we're going to lead into his life on that planet and get more of that character fleshed out for us. But again, like Craig stated, there's a lot of reports, pro and negative, for this next episode.
I actually think the next episode is going to be our flashback.
Okay, that would make sense.
And I think where some of these people are the ones that are making fun of it / hating on it. I think it's because you're bringing in that whole Coven thing.
Yeah.
And that may be something that some people don't like, and I can see why. The very little of that was in the trailer, because you have that whole scene where Tobin's eyes turn black, and
right.
I think that may be in the next episode.
Right, and if we've learned anything from Star Wars TV shows, all the marketing usually is the stuff front-loaded in the beginning of the series. So everything after a certain point is just going to be brand new stuff. And there are scenes that we haven't seen yet, like the flashback. Of course, we see like the backs of the Jedi. And I think Vernestra Rowe is out there with them. And I think that's the point in time where we see her purple lightsaber light whip in action.
Right, and also, they didn't spend all this money on Carrie-Anne Moss to not use her.
Right, of course. Yeah, I mean, you assume that.
I mean, it's not like Carrie-Anne Moss is super busy these days, but still, she's one of the more expensive actors on this set.
Yeah. So Joseph on YouTube says, my children watched Ahsoka and enjoyed it, except for the witches in the Acolyte. The trailers, they had witches. What do you think the witches will do in the series? Possibly train the two girls. I think the rumor is for the witches. So if you go to the StarWars.com data bank, you see the main person in that group is called Mother Anastasia. And I believe that one of the twins was introduced as Osher May Anastasia. And I believe that's supposed to be the mother. And we all talked about the scarring above the forehead for May, and it looks pretty much identical to what Mother Anastasia is wearing on her forehead. So possibly the mother of the twins, but apparently I think it's been described in the junkets and interviews, and maybe the databank too on StarWars.com, where this is another group, kind of like the Acolytes of the Beyond, like kind of like the Church of the Force, where they're just kind of their own entity. They're not Jedi, they're not Sith, but I believe they have their own certain ideals and beliefs, and I think that's exactly what we know to this point. I mean, who knows? Mother Anastasia could be the person in the helmet. I mean, we don't know. I mean, it's
I mean, we're 2 episodes in. It's a little too early to make like. There's a lot of possibilities in that. I don't think that she's the person in the helmet, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think that's going to be either a big twist or just a brand new character altogether. And then maybe we meet the Master, and the Master is like kind of the big twist.
Like if I had to make and this is what a complete guess and way out there kind of guess, it's theoretically possible that that's their father, who supposedly also died in that fire that they talked about.
That's a good call out there. I didn't think about the father, but if Anastasia is the mother, that could be the father, and that could give that character more kind of a reason to go after
those Jedi, because they killed his wife.
You may have just cracked it right there, Carl.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
I didn't even think of that. I hate myself for not thinking about that. But yeah, that could be the father. Even though you look at that character build and the body, it feels kind of small, more like feminine to me. But I don't know. Like the shoulders seem kind of.
But you also, again, there are no close-up shots of this character, like in comparison to anybody else's height, whatever. So there's no point of reference. The only thing that you see that we've seen of this character so far is a little bit of a close-up shot of the helmet. You see him from the waist up in the forest, and you see him standing on that rock, or her. So. Who knows what? For all we know, that could be a 6'5" character. It could be a 5'5" character.
Yeah,
there's no point of reference
as well. Yeah.
So
Joseph also says, no offense, but this is starting to sound very weird. It sounds like you just described a satanic ritual. Well, I mean, Star Wars is kind of a mirror up to our reality, and that does exist. And there's cults, and there's different religions, and all that stuff. So yeah, it's kind of a mirror to what we have on.
Yeah, I mean, you have the witches of Dathomir that actually have, a completely different set of powers, which they've now shown.
And Joseph asked on YouTube, what does this have to do with Star Wars? Everything. I mean, this is Star Wars. It's kind of like a mirror held up to our society and our world. So yeah. Star Wars is everything. That's the beauty of Star Wars. It's everything. It's religion. It's politics, it's action, it's love, it's family, hope. That's Star Wars. It's everything. So, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, bring up? I know we're about an hour 33 in.
I mean, I think we pretty much covered it all pretty well. I'm probably going to do a couple more watch throughs on this and kind of dissect some of the stuff and kind of get into how they do that kind of stuff. But
yeah, I think I am too. I actually didn't get to watch the 2 episodes. So I kind of had them on in the background. I was like in a meeting, so I need to rewatch them as well. But yeah, that was terrific analysis and breakdown, Carl. So yeah, hopefully you'll be back for pre-show, post-show stuff. And
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, my schedule changes starting tomorrow.
oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
So that might be a little. Well, actually, possible because
Post-show would probably work, but I mean, you have to watch the episode though. That's the only problem.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
All right, sounds good. And for Carl, my name's David. May the force be with you, and catch us next Tuesday.